I am really grateful and thankful to be here. Thanks to WordPress Photos Dream Team for having me here today. So today I will share with you how photography became beyond anything else and everything else in my life. And actually the power of photography is always the same for me in my life and in my heart. It started with this photograph. This is my father. He passed away 10 years ago, unfortunately. But in a very young age, when I was very young, for 2 years, this photograph was my father to me. And he was absent, but because of this photograph, he was present all the time. I could have this photograph as evidence, show it to my friends, take it with me to school and say, look, my father is here. Because 1979, the revolution happened in Iran, as you know. And it was a revolution within each family and each person. And my family, they were one of those families. So after the revolution, my father had to move to France for a few years. And he was away, but this photograph was the evidence of his being. And the hallmark of the photograph is telling the truth to me, always. So it didn't end like this. It didn't end with this photograph, actually, because I can remember a few years afterwards, we had this family gathering together, and they bring a very old suitcase full of family photographs, and they told me, this is one of your cousins. She lives in Spain. Another one, she lives in France. Another one. So that was the story of my family. The introduction was through the photographs. And then I learned how to find the connection, how to have the conversation with the photographs, and how to have this spiritual actually link to the photographs. And it actually waits with me, and it stays through the life with me until I started to study photography in Art University of Tehran. And I am still, but those days I was absolutely in love with archive photographs. And when I was a student, an opportunity came out at Golestan Museum. Golestan Museum, it used to be the main palace of King of Iran, King Nasruddin Shah, which goes to Qajar era in Iran. It was the main palace, but now in Tehran, it is the main museum which they keep all the archive photographs and all the archive images of those era. Because Qajar era was the time when the photographs and actually the camera came to my country, to Iran. And it was a gift from Queen Victoria, and Nasruddin Shah, the king, was the very first photographer. And that was the time when women became the subjects of the camera for the very first time in the history. And it was few, actually months after the invention of photography in Europe. So they had this, I was interested in archive photographs, but not necessarily interested so much in to work on this subject, because I was really confused about my identity those days, about my own identity as a girl in Iran. Which one is my identity? The one which I have with my family. My family are not religious, so we had a different life in our private place, and then I had a very different life in public. And I was struggling, which one is real me? Is it me when we are partying and having fun with my family, I wear whatever I want to wear, or is it me when I wear my scarf and go to the university? So, but then they asked me to do 2 years research on women photographs of Qajar, which belong to almost 196 years ago. And as you see, this is one of the very first self-portrait of King of Iran with his wives. And he had 117 wives. in his palace. Very lucky man, you cannot imagine. So exactly, and through the history, when I was a student, I learned so many exotic stories about these women, royal women, women of palace. They were just such an amazing, glorious life they had. But when I did my research for 2 years, I didn't end up with universities, archives. I didn't end up with these photographs. I wanted to know more about these women. And I just tried to find 117 names of the wives of king, and I did it. So it was really good. I knew which one is which one, and I found it actually their life wasn't as beautiful as we heard through our history. They had a really difficult life. Most of the times, 117 women in this palace, and that cat, his name was Babri Khan. He was more really actually dear to our king rather than his wives. But anyway, I found the real stories, and I found one of these women's diaries and memories. And one of the other women, Taj Sultana, she was a poet. I found her poems, and the name of the poems actually is Black and White. And it was really interesting because I was talking about double identity in my today's life as an Iranian woman. And I found it, 168 years ago, she talked about the same things, black and white, her identity as a royal woman and her identity as one of the women of this palace. So that was the reason, working on these photographs, I started to connect these women together. I mean, these women and these women. The women which I was living with them, and I was one of them. So this is actually the story of my own life too. So I printed and I photographed and printed the mask and covered the women's face behind the mask of the past, because they have unlimited things to say, I guess, these historical photographs. And the reason was these photographs, they concealed the woman's face, but they cannot hide the reality which is behind this mask. She's brave, she's beautiful. So I work on this series, and then it has the story. And at the end of the series, one of the girls, she threw the mask away, and she has her own real face. I started with these photographs with my family and my friends because I didn't get the permission to take photographs in public because of my subject. But then I found a way. I went for permission to take photographs of Tehran trees because they are destroying them and they are making buildings. So they gave me a permission. So I started for 2 months, take the photographs in the park and make sure there is a tree and there is a woman in the frame. But then after a few months, I became really, actually, maybe these subjects, they haunted me, these photographs. They were really powerful. So I took the camera in different places. And something which was really interesting, it was the self-censorship, which was within these women. They carry that censorship. As you see, they hide very often the face with the hand or with the vase or with the flower or with the paper when they knew I was taking these pictures. So I took these pictures for many years, and that was the main project of my BA, and I exhibited afterwards in London, and then it went to different places. And that was the reason they accepted my proposal to do my PhD in UK, to carry on my studying. And for me, this project was just complete and finished. But then 6 months ago, I decided maybe I just need to add some text because I found it out right now it's not very easy for me to go back to Iran. So I turned the camera towards myself again and did this self-portrait, and I combined my story with the stories of these women. For example, this one is about a woman who had miscarriage, and she had to have it, and unfortunately she passed away. So again, these two stories and the text, which hopefully it would be my upcoming book, which would be out next year. And then after this project, I moved to UK, and I was doing my PhD. It was really good because I didn't have double identity anymore. Actually, I was trapped in between three identities, which was even worse because I was indoor and outdoor Amak, private and public, and then to live in the UK, not as a holiday, because I was there for holiday, it was fun, it was brilliant with family, but as a Persian girl who was living there by herself to study. And I found it actually, it's really hard to express myself because whenever I was introduced myself to my friends, hi, where are you? I am Roberto, I am from Spain. Oh, I love your country, I am from Czech. We love your beers. And where are you from? My name is Amak, I am from Iran. And all of a sudden, oh, so sorry. How could you go to university? How can you do doctorate? Have you ever had a boyfriend? And how is it life in Iran? And the worst question, I'm sorry, but how are the toilets in Iran? And I was like, really? So this is getting really serious, but there are so many ways which people and humans, they can express themselves. You just need to get closer and look deeper, come out of these media stories. I cannot blame, because it was in Guardian in 2008, it was actually an article about Iranian pistachio and saffron. And it was really beautiful, such a beautiful product and experts. But then the picture next to this pistachio article, it was a woman with a black cover in the petrol station. And I was thinking for many days, how is it related to pistachio, this woman? Is it become a symbol of my country? This is the way people, they know us. So anyway, I was working on this, writing on my PhD for 2 years and taking the photographs in the UK, but then I had a phone call which absolutely changed my life, and that was the news that my father passed away in Iran. I went to Iran and obviously I was absolutely damaged. I didn't want to take the photographs and just wanted to have some time. I was writing those days. But then I started to think about phototherapy. How can I cure myself? How can I save myself with the photographs? And one day when I was thinking about these things, not that day specifically, but I was thinking about that photography and going back to my camera, touch my camera, take it out and take the photographs. And one morning I was wearing my scarf, because we have the scarf in Iran and we carry this knot with the scarf every day. That is part of our daily life in Iran. And it's just like doing and untying a knot in front of the mirror reminds oneself every day that you are carrying these rules, this religion, these standards. And that is part of our life. And that day, in front of the mirror, I was actually wearing my scarf, and I found out, wow, such a sad knot, and why do I wear black all the time? Because before that, I loved to wear colorful stuff. And then I thought, wow, it's actually my feeling today. I can show how I feel with a simple knot, with my scarf, without using any word. So I went out immediately, and I started to ask women in public places if I could take a photograph of their knots. And then I told them they won't be identified. I showed them I had this very small Sony camera. I could hide it. I didn't bother myself to go for permission. And then I found there are so many knots in the city which I wear. So these knots are about women and their lives in Iran. They learn how to express how they feel about these rules with a simple knot. It's just enough if you look at them, without using any word. And then I found old knot, pretty one, religious one, sad one, many, many knots. And now I will just go through the photographs, and I would like you to see them, and maybe you can feel how I did feel about, and I am still feeling about these photographs. All these different happy, old, sad, and beautiful ones. That was that project. So I was working on this project, the nuts and the women, and it took me a few months. I traveled to different places because different cities, they would be more religious or less religious, young generation. That was a very interesting, actually, project. I really loved the conversation which I had because I always like to have a conversation and connection with these women because I am one of them. And each project is a chapter of my own life, and it's the narrative of my own life. I feel it, and then I take the photographs. And then the same year as I was in Iran, because I didn't come back, I asked for 1 year leave for my PhD, and I stayed in Iran. And while we were doing our paperwork after my dad's death, actually one day I was sitting in a reception room with my mother, and we had our birth certificates in our hands. The name of birth certificate is Shanasname. It comes like this size, exactly, the original size and color, and it shows all the information which do with your identity, your name, your surname, and then your photograph. So I was holding these two Shanasname, and it has a photograph, obviously, of my mother and myself. And all of a sudden, I just realized, wow, it's just like I am looking at myself in 33 years. Because me and my mom, we look absolutely similar in this photograph. But as individuals, we are absolutely different. We have our own personality. So that was, and it came to me, so it's about all the Iranian women. We were made to look similar. All the restrictions and the standards of presentation of your femininity through the photographs. So while I was thinking about these things in my head, that person in that registration office, he asked us to fix our fingerprints next to our photographs. And this is what happened. Our photographs were so similar, but the fingerprints, actually, they were completely different from each other. And as you see, forget about the text, please, because that day I was really emotional. This is exactly the same day. And I did write in Persian and in English in my own way. But as you see, my fingerprint is there because I went home and I thought, wow, I should do something with these differences and similarities. So as you see, I had a scar on my finger that day, and that white part, actually, that is the scar I had. And this scar could be in your arm, on your finger, in your heart, in your mind. We all carry our scars, and we have a way to show that as part of us, but it's within us. So I started to collect Shanasname photographs for 3 years. And this is a really deeply personal story, Shanasname, but it pertains to something general. So it makes this project a little bit complicated because it's not very easy to go and ask someone, can I have your birth certificate photograph and your fingerprint? They would say, what do you need them for? Because they are really personal. That was the reason I worked for 3 years, and I started with family and friends, and gradually different stories came to me. And friends asked their families, families asked their friends, and 73 women they participated through these 3 years. And I could manage to pick up 53 fingerprints because then it started from Tehran, and then I had to go, for example, to Shiraz to just collect one fingerprint and come back home. Like, imagine 11 hours driving, and I couldn't afford the flights all the time. But it was really beautiful because it was a journey outside and inside me, this project. And most of the time, I was really grateful to see and to meet these women. Because I had the photograph, then I was there to pick up the fingerprint and to meet them. So now again, we go through the pictures, how similar they are to each other, and then the fingerprints, how different they are. This beautiful lady, she's my mom. So obviously I started with my family, as I told you, and friends. While I was working on this project, I found this photograph on my way. And then I thought it's again a self-censorship, because obviously she torn the page before throwing it because of her own reasons. And that is part of the project, and that was part of the book, which is a torn page. And this lady, she lived in Shiraz, and I was in Tehran, as I told you. So when I went to pick up her fingerprint, I arrived at the door like always, and then a man in black, he opened the door, and he told me, "I'm so sorry, but my mother passed away, and we were so busy with the funeral, we couldn't even find your details to contact you. We are so sorry." I was really shocked, and I was really sad, not because of that fingerprint and the journey, because she was really nice all the time through our conversation, and I was really looking forward to see her, to meet this photograph. But I asked him, "Can I come to your house and be 5 minutes in her favorite place in the house?" Because at the same time, she was present for me. She was absent and present. I was in her place, and I had her photograph. So he took me to the garden, and he told me actually his mom, she loved flowers, and that was the reason they had a really small fish pond in the garden, which was with mosaic. And he said, when she passed away, I feel this with the ground, with the earth, to plant some flowers. And for me, that was her identity instead of her fingerprint. That was the reason I scanned the original page of her birth certificate, and I did write it and bring it instead of her fingerprint as part of this project. And now the fingerprints are here. And the second year, while I was working on this project, you might know, you are journalists, sometimes it happened, they scratch, especially in the market or in the magazines, when there is a top or they want to scratch the body, the chest of the woman, which is for swimming costume advertising. And I heard in some registration office, they do this with these rejected photographs. It could be because of the makeup or the hair or something like this. They cannot accept this photograph, and these photographs are disapproval. But some people, they are scratching them, and I couldn't believe that, because I was thinking cannot be true and this cannot happen. But the second year, while I was working on this project, one of my friends who works in a registration office in Karaj, is one of the cities in Tehran, she told me, "Amak, can we meet up? I have a pack for you." And then she gave me these photographs from the bin of that registration office. And when I saw that, it was really hard, because it was like it's just your soul flow away. They were real, and I had them in my hand, so it wasn't any way to deny them. For my PhD, talking with my supervisors, and even for this project, I wasn't sure if I am happy to use these photographs, because all the time through the chapters and through my stories, I try to show these women, they are different. They are silent, but they are not voiceless. Maybe there are so many other ways to see them. And I was thinking to bring them here, maybe you might feel pity for them. I don't know, it was really hard. For 5 years, I was thinking about that. And then after many conversations, I found it out actually mostly people feel pity for the person who've done this on this face, not this woman, and they are actually powerful. That was the reason they became part of this project, and they became part of the exhibition and the book. But because of the identification, I don't know these women, and I don't I don't have even permission. That is the reason when I see they can be real and recognized or identified, I crop the image. This is the only time when I crop the images with this rejected one. Because some of them are like this, it's not easy to be identified, but some of them they can. And then at the end, this project became a book, and I was really lucky to work with lovely people in Bristol. They saw the book and they saw the dummy. The dummy, it was really fantastic. It was a meditation. As you see, that is my own hair. I used to have a long hair, so I cut my hair, I made my dummy, I took it to the publisher, and he was like, this is brilliant, but first of all, this is really expensive to make this book, and second of all, just look at your hair. You cannot publish all these copies. So then we designed a different style of the book, but at the same time, I wanted to bring something into the book as part of me, something which is attached to the story. That's the reason the books come in this fabric case. And this is the same fabric which I used to wear when I was young at school. You can see the book, I think, is in the bookshop. And these are the fabrics. So we made all the case of the books. They are all handmade. And it was such a lovely experience. And the book published in May 2016, and in July it was absolutely sold out. It was a really good experience, and really good feeling to show it with these women. And now this is a multimedia which I like you to see, please.
I was born in 1980 in Iran. I learned how to wear my scarf when I was 7 years old. Shanasname is the name of official Iranian birth certificate. It contains basic personal details and a photograph of the person it identifies. Shanasname is valid for life, but the photograph must be updated. For a woman in Iran, the making of this photograph is a personally charged affair. Her hair must be covered in keeping with official standards. If the woman's appearance is not correct, the photograph will not be accepted. Six years ago, I was sitting in a reception room next to my mother. We were holding our Shanasname. My eyes began to flick from the picture of my mother to the picture of myself, and back again, to what this picture meant, to what they showed, and to what they didn't show. I looked like her, and she looked like me. And it went beyond that. All of a sudden, I realized that we, all Iranian women, were being made to look the same, plain faces with no hair showing.
کین عمری نمودی کین عمری نمودی اندر امیدواری اندر امیدواری. And then there were the fingerprints.
They were very different. A small part of our being could show how different we were from each other. The scar I had on my finger became a part of my identity, highlighted and noted on the page next to my photograph. And Yushoku, Setare, Nona, Vensi, Sara, Shahnaz, Ziba, Shahin, Shirin, Azita, Neda, Roshima, Nilufar, Bahar, Iran, Dari, Sare, Refahi, Shabnam, Sabeghi, Nasim, Mahin, Naq, Jamile, Guliveri, Leila, Farid, Hengame. You will find my letter in your heart, Shadi. It has many pages full for you, Elham, Azita, and Yushoku, Rosa, Setare, Nilufar, Vensi, Bahar, Iran, Guliveri, Leila, Sara, Hengame, Shahin, Azita, Rosa, Nilufar, Bahar, Iran, Sabeghi, Mahin, Jamile, Guliveri, Leila, Hengame, Mehregan, Farid. You will find my letter in your heart. It has many pages full of silence. I saw her at a ceremony. She was kind and happy. I took her portrait and her fingerprint with me. 1 year later, she wrote to me and asked me to remove her photograph from this book. Her name was Shirin.
Amak, thank you very much. And you also be signing books downstairs after this round of presentations. Thank you very much, Amak.